Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whenever you are listening and wherever you are, this is Fit Disney, helping you make sure your Disney resort is a good fit for you and your family. Today we are on location at Walt Disney World's Pop Century Resort. The Pop Century Resort at Disney brings to larger-than-life icons from the decades of the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. We'll take a look at what Disney decided to use to represent those decades in a moment, but first, let's take a step back. The Pop Century is considered a value resort, though that word value combined with Disney can feel a bit misleading sometimes. For me, even within the value collection, the Pop Century and the Art of Animation have one claim above the other value spots, which are the All-Star Resorts, and that is the Skyliner. Maybe Art of Animation and the Pop could become moderate resorts one day. I won't compare value versus moderate versus deluxe resorts here, but save that for another time. On the continuum of appreciated Disney transportations, it is said the Skyliner is a step below the Wilderness Lodge boats and a step up from the buses, though these types of comparisons are dangerous among Disney faithful, so I won't dwell on it. It is a Skyliner, and it's great unless it's really hot or it stops every 15 seconds. The real appeal to myself and many Pop Centenarians is the gestalt of walking or running around the whole place, because one of these giant statues they have here is value-ish impressive, but seeing them all in succession is moderately impressive. Yeah, you're welcome. Completed in 2003, the Pop Century was originally going to be one half of a mirrored resort on the other side of Hourglass Lake, covering the, quote, classic years, which are the 1950s to the 90s, which is what the current property does. The original concept had the resort on the other side of the lake be the legendary years between 1900 and the 1940s. So, if you've ever wondered why the bridge from the Art of Animation to the Pop Century is called the Generation Gap Bridge, this is why. It was connecting two generations of similarly themed hotels. The tourism dip after 9/11/2001, however, caused a permanent pause of the building of the Legendary Years Hotel. For almost 10 years, the skeleton of the Legendary Years remained, until it became another value resort, the family favorite Art of Animation, in 2012. You can see here the incredible growth up until 2001, when 14 resorts opened in 10 years, with only 3 resorts in the next 10 years, not including some of the add-ons at existing resorts. Things have slowed in the resort building from scratch phase with Disney since the Pop Century opened. As of 2026, only Saratoga Springs, the Art of Animation, and the Riviera Resort have been completed as ground-up facilities since then. The Pop Century has a lot of rooms. For perspective's sake, if every room was occupied with a family of 3, there would be more people at the Pop Century than live in Florida's smallest county. But even yet, it is the 3rd largest Disney World resort. To be fair, if you divide up Port Orleans into its 2 distinct areas, and the All-Star into its 3 distinct hotel areas, the Pop Century is the largest hotel in the state of Florida. Now, for some humble pie, there are 15 hotels in Las Vegas that have more rooms than the Pop Century. And that is where my comparison between Disney and Vegas ends. How does it feel staying there? Well, even though it has so many rooms, it is spread out. Even with some nice wooded paths and areas, over 177 acres, making it one of the larger properties by area. It does not feel too crazy, I can say, after staying there multiple times, and even once during Mickey's not-so-scary Halloween parties, and there are a ton of kids there at that time. And there's only 16 rooms per acre, which, despite its enormous capacity, gives plenty of space to roam. Pop Century is near the southern boundary of the Greater Walt Disney World Resort, just north of the ESPN Sports Complex and to the west of a few Disney-adjacent resorts like the Hilton Signia, Bonnet Creek Wyndham, and the Waldorf Astoria. It is the southern terminus of the Skyliner and part of the Skyliner cluster of resorts, including the Pop, Art of Animation, the Caribbean Beach, and the Riviera Resort. If you want to drive to a couple of the theme parks, it's 6.2 miles or 9.92 kilometers to the Magic Kingdom and 4.8 miles or 7.68 kilometers to the Animal Kingdom. Along the Skyliner itself, you'll need to figure around 30 minutes to get to Epcot or Hollywood Studios, because you do have to get off of one line of the Skyliner and get onto another one at the main hub, located at the Caribbean Beach Resort. From Pop Century here, you travel on the Art of Animation Pop Century line to the main hub. You disembark and choose either the Hollywood Studios line or the Epcot line, which has a station where you can get off at the Riviera Resort or stay on board all the way to Epcot. It is a fun, novel way to travel so long as your ride is not in a windy thunderstorm, stopping for any length of time in the heat, or you have the pleasure of sharing your Skyliner gondola with unpleasant riding mates. That's pretty rare at Disney, but every once in a while you might be stuck in one of these hot boxes with a screaming child, an arguing or silent treatment couple where each thought the other had made reservations, or a group where someone used too much perfume or too little deodorant. From a bird's eye Disney view, the Pop is not the best location, but if you're not trying to get somewhere quickly, you won't mind. Location is one thing, transportation options are another, and there are limited room options at the Pop Century to consider. But remember, all the resorts have their pros and cons, and that's why you're ensuring this is a good fit for you and your family. The Pop Century property is large, spread out over these almost 200 acres, and features 10 three-winged buildings. And starting here from north to south with buildings 1, 2, and 3, we have the 1950s. The Pop buildings all have large indicator sculptures on the end of each building. For the 1950s, these are giant bowling pins. And bookending the coolest shaped pool you've seen here are the 40-foot-tall Lady and Tramp statues. The Lady and the Tramp was released in 1955, and the Tramp really has no name in the movie. But it's been shown he was almost named Homer, almost named Rags, and almost named Bozo. How I wish it were the Lady and Bozo. There's also a giant jukebox outside of Building 2. The 1960s buildings, 4 and 5, are the closest to the Skyline station if you're thinking about requesting that in your reservation. And you'll have enormous yo-yos covering each building's stairwells. The movie featured is 1967's The Jungle Book with Mowgli and Baloo statues, as well as a giant vat of Play-Doh. Who hasn't thought of how fun it would be to jump into a vat of Play-Doh? The 1970s buildings, 6 and 10, of course, are bookended by giant 8-tracks, and if you're old enough to have seen or tried to listen to 8-tracks, well, you're pretty old. 8-tracks were known for their poor sound quality and jamming up the player and eating the tape inside of the cassette. Everyone was pleased when the smaller cassette tapes emerged in the 80s. The courtyard statues are the classic Mickey Mouse telephone and everyone's favorite tireless gravel churning trike, the Big Wheel. And in between is a larger-than-life foosball table where it looks like a match between Germany and Germany. The 1980s buildings 7 and 9 feature giant Rubik's Cubes and a 35-foot-tall Roger Rabbit. This reminds us that, from whatever movies Disney could choose from to represent the 80s, this was probably the best option. Also, there's a huge Walkman statue, which was the forerunner of the Discman, and neither could be confused with either Dayman or Nightman. Also, we have nearby statues of Michael Jackson, the king of pop, and the now more popular than Michael Jackson, Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head, along with everyone's favorite 80s arcade hero, Pac-Man. Do we ever wonder why the spin-off arcade game was called Mrs. Pac-Man instead of Pac-Woman? Probably not. The 1990s fittingly get one building, and if you're an adolescent of the 90s and you're saying, of course we get one building instead of 2 or 3, on the staircase ends of the building we get cell phones, which are remarkably close to the original size of cell phones. And the phone number on these large cell phones is strategically a direct line to book your next Disney trip. To round out the impressive statues, the 90s have a giant laptop, complete with poor internet service. The 1960s bowling pin and the 1980s-90s square pool are the smaller, less populated pools on the north and south ends of the resort, with the 1960s hippy dippy pool, shaped as a flower, in the center of the resort, and it has its own Petals pool bar. Inside the Classic Hall, we have an enormous food court, and this is the beginning and end of food options here at this value resort. There's also a large resort gift shop and one of the biggest and best arcades you'll find at a Disney resort. What about your fitness center options? Well, this is a short section because there is no fitness center. The Value Resort Collection, Art of Animation, Pop Century, and the All-Stars have a total of 0 fitness centers among them, so let's move on. What about other options for fitness then? Now, if you've seen some of our other Fit Disney clips, you know that we will try to take advantage of some indoor walking when the opportunity presents itself, but this does not apply at the Pop. The hotel has no internal hallways. So that means any workouts you want to do will include the great outdoors, surrounded by those iconic figures staring down at you, encouraging you to do your best. There is a jogging trail that circles around Hourglass Lake that taps in at 1.38 miles or 2.22 kilometers. If you walk the perimeter of the property, just staying to the outside, you can start anywhere and keep to the paths on the outer edge of the buildings, and you will walk 1.2 miles or 1.92 kilometers. If you just walk the perimeter of one building, to give you an idea of how big each of these are, it's 0.23 miles around. If you were to take the stairs up after each time around the building, you get very close to a full mile with each of these 4-story buildings. If you've watched any of our other installments of Fit Disney, you know we like to do a little challenge for each resort. So here is the Pop Century Challenge. Walk the ground floor perimeter of every one of the 10 Pop Century buildings. You can start at any of the buildings, but let's just say we start at building 1 here near Classic Hall. Starting at 1, go in order 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, down to 7, 8, 9, back up to 10, and finish back in front of the Classic Hall. And you will have yourself a 3.5 mile or 5.6 kilometer walk, run, jog, and you'll have quite a few stairs mixed in there as well. Hey, do this and you've completed the challenge. Most Disney resorts are in clusters. The Contemporary Resort, Polynesian, Grand Floridian, and the Wilderness Lodge are around Magic Kingdom. The Skyliner route has the Riviera, Caribbean Beach, Pop Century, and Art of Animation. Disney Springs has Old Key West, Port Orleans, and Saratoga Springs. And the Epcot cluster has the beach and yacht clubs, the Boardwalk, and the Dolphin and the Swan. The Skyliner cluster has 2 value resorts, a moderate and a deluxe, making it the most diverse area in terms of Disney-related amenities. You have the very affordable food court in the Pop Century and the beautiful rooftop restaurant at the Riviera, and there's a lot of in between. If you are focusing your time on Hollywood Studios and Epcot, the Skyliner gives you great direct access, but don't be fooled. The Skyliner to those 2 parks is not really any faster than the buses you can take to Animal Kingdom or Magic Kingdom. Now, what if you're one of those people who is needing a little further distance for running, training for the next big event, or just to stay in shape, get in shape while you're walking some miles at the parks too? If you are one of these people who need to hit the pavement and need longer distances because you're training, because you want to explore a little bit, or because mentally it's just tough doing the shorter distances over and over, let's look at some relative distances from the Pop, and we'll start at the Hippy Dippy Pool since it's right in the middle of the resort. What if you want some longer runs because you're on a training schedule and obviously there's no treadmills here? All of these places you can get to multiple ways, but these distances try to take the least traveled roads to each destination. So starting at the Pop Century, to go to the Art of Animation is 1 mile or 1.6 kilometers. The Caribbean Beach, 1.1 miles or 1.76 kilometers. To the Riviera Resort, it's 1.5 miles. That's 2.4 kilometers. To the Boardwalk, 1.8 miles. That's 2.88 kilometers. To the ESPN Sports Area, it's 2 miles, or 3.2 kilometers. Now, to either the Dolphin or the Swan, it's 2.6 miles, which is 4.16 kilometers. And to the Yacht and Beach Clubs, it's 2.8 miles, 4.48 kilometers, as well as to the Coronado Springs. To Disney Springs, it's 3 miles, 4.8 kilometers, and also 3 miles to the Port Orleans French Quarter. Old Key West, a little bit further at 3.1 miles, or 4.96 kilometers. The All-Star Music, 3.6 miles, or 5.76 kilometers. Saratoga Springs, which is 3.8 miles, that's 6.08 kilometers. The Animal Kingdom Lodge is 4.6 or 7.36 kilometers. If you're going up to the Fort Wilderness area, it's 5.5 miles, which is 8.8 kilometers. The Polynesian Resort, 5.7 miles, 9.12 kilometers. The Grand Floridian, 6.7 miles, or 10.72 kilometers. Back over to the Wilderness Lodge, 6.8 miles, or 10.88 kilometers. And finally, to the Contemporary Resort, 7.4 miles, which is 11.84 kilometers. A few overall impressions of the Pop Century Resort. Number one, it is not a lot of people's first choice because of its relative distance to the theme parks, the lack of good food and dining options, and you can be a half mile from your car. If you're wanting to hit a gym on property, Pop Century is not an option for you. Number two, it does have a lot of really neat Disney iconoclasts, and the statues are huge. And even if you don't stay here, I would encourage you to visit both the Pop Century and the Art of Animation and walk around to see these enormous, perfect replicas of some of our favorite Disney characters. Number three, financially, you're going to have to consider the opportunity costs because no Disney resort is cheap. You must figure out what it's worth to you to stay there versus, let's say, the Boardwalk or the Contemporary. If the convenience and amenities are worth $200 a day, you will probably end up at the Pop Century because those other spots will be $300 or more dollars a day more than the Pop Century. Figure out what that differential is for you and your family, and remember all other costs can remain the same. Or maybe you are able to add some nice dining options by staying at the Pop Century. Fit it into your budget and make the best choice you can for your trip. So remember, make sure your Disney resort is a good fit for you. Take care, and we will see you next time.